So there's a lot of movies out there that follow that old trope of the hero's journey. It's a tale as old as time. A formula so popular that it's been used over and over and over again. It just never gets old. But there is an inverse to this type of journey. A polar opposite. It's what I call the jerk's journey. But what is that exactly? Well, before we go into that, let's take a quick look back at what the hero's journey is like. That way we can better appreciate its evil twin. Now, most notably, movies like Star Wars have borrowed heavily from this formula. The hero is usually down on their luck, at a low point, on the verge of giving up. And it looks like things are never going to change. When suddenly, the story crashes through the front door and says you're coming with me whether you like it or not. But we're okay with a little bit of intrusion. We want them to succeed. So our bags are packed, and we're ready to go. And then the hero takes us on a journey. There's danger ahead, but they pull us through each crisis. And by the end, it feels like we've been through something too. And we've come out on the other side stronger and wiser than we've ever been before. It makes us feel that the impossible is possible. But that's the hero, a character that was already good to begin with. So what about the character that isn't so good, that isn't so nice? As far from heroic as you can get. Selfish, greedy, condescending, rude, where the story is not so much of a hero's journey, but more like an anti-hero's journey. Less of fighting off external threats, but rather more internal ones. Less about a battle against incredible odds, and more of a story of personal redemption and revelation, where at the end, the movie shows us the good that has been inside them this whole time. Even though it was really hard to see at first. Like The Grinch, The Ref, Bad Santa. But then there's the most famous of them all, Ebenezer Scrooge. Now this character has been portrayed by a lot of people throughout the years, but the one that stands out the most to me is Bill Murray's version from 1988, in the Richard Donner directed version of Charles Dickens' immortal Scrooge. Duh. Bill Murray is a screen legend, and I think it really shows here. He was simply a perfect choice for this role, with his exceptional ability to be cynical and arrogant, but somehow endearing all at the same time. He's just so bad. It's almost inhuman. It's like he's an alien. But this type of movie is one of my favorite types. There's just something really satisfying about seeing a deeply flawed and mean character become a kind and caring one. But these type of characters, they can't start out all bad. At the beginning, there's gotta be some humanity in them. Just enough for us to connect with them. Just a little bit at first. But in the beginning of Scrooged, it's hard to find anything redeemable about Frank Cross. Although his overwhelming shrewdness is very funny, he's a jerk, but sort of charismatic in a no-holds-barred, complete disregard of decency kind of way. But it does leave us wondering, what makes him tick? What is it that made him so mean? We want to find out. But as we start to learn more about this guy, we can't help but feel sorry for him, as his humanity slips out. It's like an emotional about-face. And I love that when it happens in movies. You can feel a certain way about a character in one moment, and then in the next, you feel something completely different. It gets you all twisted up inside. And for Frank Cross, it's kind of the same way. When the movie starts out, he's horrible, making Christmas commercials with drugs and terrorists, firing people on a whim, destroying precious children's art pieces. But there is some slight levity to this, slipped in just below the radar, just enough to let us know that it's there. There's this scene with Frank and his brother James. It's a short scene, but what we read between the lines is that there's some tension going on here. It's as if Frank has closed himself off from family in his life, severing those emotional bonds a long time ago. Although disconnected now, this scene lets us know that that wasn't always the case. But the movie's just getting started here. When the movie takes us into the past, we can see very clearly where he gets this sense of detachment from his dad. Like father, like son, And it's all the more true here. It's his dad that really nails into him the impression on weakness, and that the equivalent of love and affection is worth only the market value of 5 pounds of veal. Now, as much as I love the other ghost sequences in the movie, this one I think is the most notable, and not just because of David Johansen as the ghost, but because I think it lays the foundation for Frank's behavior.
Have you tried Staples?
Staples?
It's like a snowball effect. In the present, we get to see how that behavior affects the ones closest to him. Each one of them is hurt by how coldly he treats them, but it's just the same form of tough love and lack of compassion that he observed as a kid. But Frank does find balance through the character of Claire. She's like his emotional anchor, and Karen Allen is able to telegraph so much of this dynamic just through her eyes. It's really incredible. Maybe I can do it. But then, Frank gets to the thing that all men fear the most, the ghost of Christmas future. This is when he gets to see all the ramifications of his selfishness, bitterness, and cruelty. And it really hurts. And you can see it on his face when it dawns on him that his actions and his inactions are responsible for destroying the lives of all the people around him. Future Frank ended up driving everyone away, dying miserable and alone. But when he's finally confronted with all of this, he's scared straight, finally breaking his insufferable bonds, finally choosing virtue. Scrooged is a cautionary tale, as they say, where the main character does a deep dive into the abyss of his own soul, but doesn't like what he finds, so he changes it. And I just love this self-reflective stuff because it reminds me that it's never too late to change, that there's always time left to make things better, that kindness and generosity, friends and family, they're not a commodity to be traded or bought. They're an absolute necessity. I'm Adam Lee. Thanks for watching.
Isn't it great that we're all better people?